Hello my friends, welcome to my channel, Lindy's Magpie Reads. I'm glad you're here. If you want to hear about books, I've got 5 to tell you about that I finished in the past week. 3 of them are audiobooks and 3 of them are queer. Goes well with Pride celebrations. I'm wearing my rainbow zebra Pride t-shirt, which I got out for the Sidney Pride celebration. I was there on Saturday with some friends. There was a drag queen story time that was fabulous. It was held in a band shell, and the little kids were gathered all around the drag queen who was telling the stories, and they had a mic, so all of us adults sitting further back could also hear. And it's nice to be listening to stories being told. One of the books was Mary Wears What She Wants by Keith Negley, I think is the author. I'll put the information in the description box. But it's about a real person, Mary Edwards Walker, and she became a doctor in the 19th century, but she was infamous for wearing pants.
But you're wearing boys' clothes, they all said. You want to know what she said? I gotta get comfortable, this is so powerful. I'm not wearing boys' clothes, she said. I'm wearing my clothes. Yay! Look at everyone here wearing exactly what they want to wear. Boys in dresses, girls in pants. It's a fantastic day. And that is the end of this story. Give it up for Mary Walker. Yes.
They also had, let's see, Dragons Love Tacos and the Creepy Underwear, and a couple of specific drag queen storybooks that I'd never seen before. One was to the tune of The Wheels on the Bus.
Now this is a fabulous book by Little Miss Hot Mess. The hips on the dragon go swish, 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 swish. The hips on the dragon go swish, 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 all through the town. Do we see how many swishy drag queens there are?
And the other one was If You're Happy and You Know It.
You know it, blow a kiss. If you're a drag queen and you know it, strike a pose. If you're a drag queen and you know it, strike a pose. If you're a drag queen and you know it, and you really want to show it. If you're a drag queen and you know it, strike a pose. Let's see your poses. Oh, yes.
Yeah, fun time had by all. Lots of club music, lots of moving and grooving, and a dog kissing booth, and yeah, all the good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, I'm going to get right into talking about books. First off, the Lambda Literary Awards were announced. The winners were announced. So I'm going to link their website down below. There's so many different categories. So these are all LGBTQIA plus books, and a few of the notable winners include I Keep My Exoskeletons to Myself by Marissa Crane. I talked about their book in a previous episode, loved it. A Guest in the House by E.M. Carroll. I also talked about their book, which is a graphic novel. Loved that one too. Collection of essays by Miriam Gurba called Creep. And that one also was one I very much enjoyed. And then there are 3 that I've been wanting to read, and now I want to even more after seeing their wins. And those include Dear Mothman by Robin Gow, Wild Geese by Soula Emmanuel, and Biography of X by Catherine Lacey. If you read any of these, please comment in the comments field down below, all right? And speaking of awards, a huge congratulations to VV Ganeshananthan for winning 2 big prizes, the Women's Prize for Fiction and the Carroll Shields Prize for her fabulous book, Brotherless Night. It's about a 16-year-old Tamil girl growing up in the north of Sri Lanka in the 1980s, when the civil war is going on. I talked about it in a previous episode, and I'm so pleased that this fantastic, wonderful book has been recognized in these 2 awards. Okay, on to the books, starting with a book that I heard about through the booktube prize. So Heidi of My Reading Life talked about Eve, how the human body drove 200 million years of evolution. It's by Cat Bohannon, and the audiobook is read by the author. It's a long audiobook, about 16 hours long, so I imagine a fat book as well. But it covers a huge span of mammalian history, the female of the species, and why we are the way we are, human women. So it's informative, it's about science, but it's also quite funny. So very readable, very interesting. And I transcribed some passages from a section about the brain. So these are some quotes. Complex systems naturally behave complexly, so being genderqueer is just as natural as being cisgender. She also writes, it's clear that trans women are women. Their brains create a gender identity because they're wired the way they are and went through developmental shifts the way they did. And one last bit, gender fluidity and or plurality also exist and should likewise be welcomed, because clearly the best authority on one's own internal experience in constructing a self and its gender identity is that self. Most people who currently identify as gender fluid aren't especially neutral on the matter of gender. In fact, having strong feelings about this is usually what prompts that person to consider it in the first place. Yeah, I'm so glad that I listened to this. It was great. And then I went on to listen to Genderqueer by Maia Kobabe. Now, I've talked about this graphic memoir before. It's a groundbreaking book about what it's like to be non-binary. And Maia Kobabe is also asexual. So yes, you heard that right. It's a graphic memoir, so it's written in comics. When I listened to it, yes, the audiobook is so well done. It's short, it's only about 2 hours long, and it's read by the author and a full cast, including the author's sister Phoebe, who's also queer and features in her coming to terms memoir, coming to terms with being non-binary and asexual. I probably wouldn't have picked this up in audio, except that I heard an excerpt from it at the tail end of a Book Riot podcast. So I heard, I don't know, like 5 minutes of it or something, and I could tell right away. It's because it's got all the sound effects, so a full production with like sounds of taping and ripping, when Maia talks about how in her comics class they were supposed to write autobiography, and it was so embarrassing that they covered it up. Now, I've got to remember that Maia Kobabe uses the Spivak pronouns, which are E, M, air. So E covered up parts of their air journal, and then in the audio recording you can hear paper ripping when he decides to write more fully about air experiences. And there's music in the audiobook, and nature sounds like bird song when Maia and her mother are walking and talking, so that kind of thing. Oh, it's a really lovely production. And next is another audiobook. This one is a collection of short stories by Billy Ray Belcourt. So, a gay Cree or Nehiyaw man from Alberta, northern Alberta, and these stories are advertised as being interconnected, and actually it's usually a pair of stories. For example, the first story and the last story are both about the same characters. A mother who is still living on the reserve, and her straight son who's living in the city, and their relationship. And there's another pair of stories that are about the only two Cree men who are in a history class at the University of Alberta. Tom and Will, one is an artist, one's a writer, and so two of the stories are about them, but one's more from Will's point of view, one's from Tom's point of view, you know, that sort of thing. I could recognize subjects that Billy Ray Belcourt has written about before in his first collection of poetry, This Wound is a World. For example, he talked about sexual encounter in the bathroom of a gas station. And this comes up in one of the stories as well. And in another story, he talks about a young man on his reservation who had been in jail for selling drugs, and now he's out, and what happens when he's on the outside. And in Billy Ray Belcourt's novel, A Minor Chorus, there is a character very much like Jake in that book. And speaking of the title of this novel, A Minor Chorus, this technique of having a chorus of voices is also used in one of the stories, where a bunch of different gay men talk about sexual experience. There is a fair bit of sex in this book, and there's also a lot about mental health. The audiobook has 3 different narrators, so that works especially well in the section that's a chorus of voices, because the 3 narrators rotate in telling those parts. But the narrators themselves, the audiobook narrators, are great. One of them is Hunter Cardinal, who's an actor who I've seen perform before. As a matter of fact, he was playing the role of Hamlet in a Shakespeare performance that I saw. And another one of the narrators is John Walmsley, who was in 3 different shows that I saw at the Stratford Festival last year. So, very good voice performances of very good short stories, stories that are full of heart and precise language, and really bring emotions to the fore, what it's like to be gay, to be Indigenous in Canada now. Oh yeah, and one of the stories in there is about attending a literary festival, and the same subject comes up in Zoe Whittle's collection of short stories, Wild Failure. So mental health is a big topic in here through many of the stories, various anxieties, agoraphobia, OCD, just intense mental health issues. The women in here tend to be quite a mess. This is typical for Zoe Whittle, and yet these are characters you can care for. The very first story, Half Pipe, that one is about a teenage girl who gets drunk to the point of blackout, and bad things happen, as you can imagine. That one was hard to read, but in the end I liked where she went with that story, so very well done. And the final story is about a murder that happens in a collective house, a cooperative living space, and there's a lot of humor in that one. Zoe Whittle's writing is just so special that I think I need to read you a bit so you can get a bit of a flavor of why I like it so much. The story is called I'm Still Your Fag, and it's set in downtown Toronto, where our narrator has fallen in a crush on the girl who lives next door, who she can see only partly through the window. A drug dealer named James lives in the basement apartment next door, underneath the girl. People move down the narrow alley like minnows. Their arms transform into gills, calling out his name. Sometimes visitors stop to nap on the front lawn of my building, like kindergarten children on mats, restless kicking, protruding pouts. Sometimes it helps to see their suffering because I know they are feeling a type of opiate bliss that can't compare to anything else. I've never done heroin, but Bob had, and that's how he described it. Now, when I see people on the nod in the alley, I think, how nice for them, instead of, how sad. Bisexual girls in these stories, lots of fun, lots to think about, Wild Failure. And last up, so this is my favorite of all 5 that I've told you about today, Xanax Cowboy, and it's a collection of poetry by Hannah Green. This book won the GG Award for Poetry, and as you can see, there's many passages that I flagged. I kept being delighted. Hannah Green just plays with language so much. She's writing about a character, a Xanax Cowboy, who has a lot of mental issues, takes drugs for it, and wishes she was a cowboy. Example. Trauma lives in the body like a cowboy lives in the television. I am trying to tell you that it is always 3 a.m. here and I ache like static. You may wonder how long I can keep this up. The sad cowboy aesthetic with a prescription bottle that rattles like a snake. I am relentless as discomfort. I'll drag myself like a dead horse until you believe it. This one's a little bit longer. In literature, we are always after the great authentic. We want our artists to be wounds we can lick. To be frank, we want some fucking blood. In 2005, James Fry's memoir, A Million Little Pieces, was promoted by Oprah's book club and became a New York Times bestseller. It follows Fry as he recovers from his drug and alcohol addiction in a private rehab facility. Oprah had described the book as transporting readers into the manic mind of an addict, i.e., a glimpse at madness from the comfort of the couch. However, much of what Fry wrote was not true, and it didn't take long for internet sleuths to remove flesh from bone. Fry had fictionalized the facts of his addiction and his stay at the facility. The public felt tricked by Fry. He was not the mad alcoholic they wanted. He was only half the wound he promised to be. What interests me is that Fry had originally tried to publish the book as fiction, but no publisher would touch it. What was unpublishable as a novel became a bestseller as a memoir. We are willing to forgive the lazy writing, the Swiss cheese plot, because it was an account of substance use disorder at its finest. The great, authentic, dog-eared in paperback. Whoa. This is very fierce, very fun Xanax Cowboy, and I do recommend it. I recommend all of these books I've told you about today. So, thank you so much for watching. I so much love to hear from you, so do say hello in the comments down below and tell me what you are reading. Have you got special books for Pride on your reading list right now? Tell me about those. And whatever you're reading, may it bring you joy. Joy is a good thing. Happy Pride, happy reading. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.